Orale! Bienvenidos and welcome to the Familia FFB podcast. We are live on YouTube. Please make sure to like and subscribe us and make sure you're following us. Follow me on Twitter at Jorge Martin 17. Please make sure you're also following our original content at familiaffb.com. So, Familia, we've heard ad nauseum hasta aquí, nos hace cosa, about Byemageddon. Okay. We've all talked about it. Everybody's said it. It's the end of the world as we know it. We don't feel fine. Basta. Basta, basta, basta. We're here to talk DFS. And there are some caliente players. Oh, I mean, this is like sizzling shrimp fajitas with some hot pico de gallo and some warm homemade corn tortillas. Te lo digo. It is right here. Muy sabroso. We have 3 games with a double-digit point spread featuring teams with high-flying offenses as the favorites. We got potential shootouts in both Tennessee and Miami, the latter pitting 2 of the bottom dwellers on defense. And you got the Packers at home against one of the worst secondaries. That's why I put Davonte Adams on the thumbnail for this picture. Familia, he is going to be caliente. He is going to, we'll get into there. But you've also, are you going to spend up? Are you going to spend up for Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, or the big money going to go after Derrick Henry? I mentioned Davante Adams. Cooper Kupp's another big dog. Travis Kelce is he a bargain this week? Yo no sé. We're going to have to talk about it. So while your redraft and dynasty rosters are just decimated, I tell you, Familia, from when I look at the reserve rosters, it's that NSYNC song, bye, bye, bye. I tell you, it's bye, 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 and injuries. No. Right here, let's talk about the Sunday main slate. And let's start off with some quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes at 8,400. You know what? Last week, he paid us off. I recommended him. He went for 397 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's going up against a Tennessee secondary that just got torched for 353 yards and 3 touchdowns by the great Josh Allen. So this Tennessee defense is number 29 against the quarterback. So Familia, let's go get us some Patrick Mahomes if you want to spend up on him. Another option, Kyler Murray, 8,500. Now, the big thing about him, he's got Houston, and it's in Arizona. So he's going to put up some numbers, but beware, he is a possibility of just turning into just kind of like controlling the clock and running out the clock at the end of the game, because they could be up 35-0 or something like that, 35-7. It's gonna be a rough afternoon for the Texans, but not for Kyler Murray. Again, if you want to go for that, I mean, he's been one of the best. He's been top 3 QB for fantasy all season long. So maybe you want to get yourself some. One of my hot recommendations is Aaron Rodgers. So the Washington football team is now going to Lambeau Field after they just got, as I mentioned, El Señor Mahomes just took them, just gave him el fajo, or maybe a flying chancla, or probably a few of them. So and Rodgers, he's on a hot streak, 12 TDs against 1 interception in the past 5 games. And again, the Washington football team is at the very bottom when it comes to defenses against the quarterback. Now, one that I had to kind of look at twice to make sure it wasn't a mistake. Lamar Jackson, 7,400. At this price, he is a bargain. You could even play him naked. Encuerado, you could play him naked, without stacking him with either a Mark Andrews or a Marquise Brown. But again, this game, I'm telling you, this game has shootout written all over it. That game against the Chargers last week, the 34-6 victory, was an anomaly. The Ravens have been giving up 300-yard passers, give him up to Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, and Ben Roethlisberger. So I mean, I'm talking about the Bengals. The Bengals have given up some, and actually the Ravens have also had their problems. I mean, it was just the previous week on Monday Night Football, the Carson Wentz threw for 400 yards against them. So sí, es posible. But again, Lamar Jackson, great play. Another one. Matthew Stafford, 7,100. Now, this is another one of those games that we could be talking about a quarterback that isn't playing a lot in the fourth quarter or is mostly handing off in the fourth quarter. So could be the only thing holding him down. But again, he's going to do damage, and he's done damage early against teams. And this is a Lions defense that's just coming off of 271 yards and 3 TDs given up to Joe Burrow. So Stafford has 300 plus yards or 3 TDs in 3 plus TDs in half his game. So he's going to be throwing long, and good options all around. Now, this is one with a cautionary tale. Ryan Tannehill, 6,400. Now, this is because I think the Chiefs and the Titans is going to be like any game against the Denver Nuggets back in the 80s, especially the ones playing Mile High. It's going to be a fast break score fest. It has to be. Tannehill's a good bet. When that happens, he can go off. He can go off for 300 yards and multiple touchdowns, maybe even run one in. He's, it hasn't gone well for him. He has only hit 300 yards once. Another time he hit 298. The last couple of weeks have been very, very pedestrian for him, but this is a game with the over under of 57.5. So we're going to see a return. We need to see a return on Tannehill on this one, especially at that price. And there's a good stacking option coming up with him. Now, familia, it hasn't been pretty with Sam Darnold. In fact, muy feo. 50, but at 5,900 at the New York Giants, you got to figure that the 4 INTs in the last 2 games and 192 passing yards, you got to hope that that's behind him. Hopefully they do a better job protecting him. But this matchup features a Giants team that has allowed 7 passing TDs in the last 2 games and is number 26 against the quarterback. So Darnold could, if Darnold gets some time, look out for DJ Moore and also Robbie Anderson if they can stop dropping passes. Ojalá. I'm counting on that, though. One of the good starts, Matt Ryan, Mateo Yellow, Matty Ice. He's coming off a bye after his best game of the year with 342 yards and 2 touchdowns in London. So, and it was against the Jets, so not a great secondary. Again, now he's got the Miami secondary that has just been están acabados con injuries. And so, I mean, I made the joke in an article that he's that they should be in the Dia de los Muertos celebration because of those injuries. But in the past 4 weeks, Tom Brady, Trevor Lawrence, and Derek Carr have all gone over 300 yards against the Dolphins. Again, this game has a potential shootout because of the next guy we're going to be talking about. And it's, there are possibilities in there where you can kind of play guys back and forth because these guys are not really, really high price players. Tua Tagovailoa, 5,500. Now I've got a lineup with Tua in it. So if you're going to believe that 329 yard performance last week in London, 2 touchdowns. So against the Jaguars, you know what? Against Atlanta, the number 30 defense against the quarterback, this is a game that could shoot. I'm telling you, it could shoot. It could be fast break. It could, there could be a lot of back and forth because these defenses just no bueno. Well, talking about muy bueno, that's a bad man over in Tennessee named Derrick Henry, El Rey, King Henry. He's 9,200, one of the most expensive. I think he is the most expensive player on the slate this week. If you're going to spend up on running back, go with El Rey. He's averaging 145 yards rushing since week 2, and he's scored 10 TDs over those 5 games. So, I mean, he just looks unstoppable. And the Chiefs, they're number 26 against the running backs. They've always been a funnel defense trying to get guys. They're getting a little bit better against the pass. Not that great, not to the point where I don't recommend Tannehill, but Derrick Henry. I mean, 9,200. You got to think he's going to go for 9,200. You got to think 150 plus and at least 2 touchdowns. You need that from him, and he's got it in him for this week. Another guy who's looking really good for this week is Darrell Henderson, or Darrell, como sea. At 6,600, he's going up against the Lions and their number 31 defense against the running back. And they've given up big games to Joe Mixon, Alexander Madison, Uh, I always want to make a Hamilton joke whenever I say his name. And David Montgomery over the past 3 weeks. Henderson's getting a rushing attempt share of 67 and 59% respectively over the last 2 games. So, and he has totaled 39 rushes over that time. He's a great pivot, saves 2,600 off of Derrick Henry. So you could spend that elsewhere. Another option to spend some money on, Cordarrelle Patterson at 6,300. Yes. If I'd have told you 2 months ago that you'd be spending this kind of money on Cordarrelle Patterson and DFS, you would tell me how loco I am and how much tequila I've had to drink. But you know what? This is a guy who's gotten at least 11 touches since week 2 every game, and he's gone over 100 total yards 3 times during that stretch. So we're picking on the Dolphins a lot. It seems too easy, but this is the number 29, numero 29 against the running back. So another one, kind of like a preseason whipping boy was Josh Jacobs. So he's 6,200. A lot of people were really down on him coming into the season. I just kept looking at the fact that this guy's going to get, 200 and 250 rushing attempts this season. And I didn't want to fade him too much. But this week, going against the Eagles, who are giving up 119.4 rushing yards to the running back position over the last 4 games, Jacobs, he is the guy who is getting the rushing attempts. He's got 44 rushing attempts over the last 3 games, just 7 for Kenyon Drake. And he also had, before last week he only had 1 target, but the previous week he had 5 targets, and the previous 2 weeks he had 10 targets total, 5 in each game. So maybe ojalá maybe he gets that, but at the very least he is getting the lion's share of the rushing attempts against a defense that's giving up some yardage. A cheap option, Michael Carter. So beware the rookie coming out of the rookie running back coming out of the bye alert. Last year you had DeAndre Swift and J.K. Dobbins each had breakout games coming out of the bye. Carter is really the only Jets running back with double-digit touches over the last 3 games, and he's been targeted 3 times in each of those games. So remember, he had a little bit of that pass-catching ability. You got the Patriots. They've been beaten up last week by Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, and the previous week David Johnson beat him up through the air. So, Michael Carter could be one of those cheaper options to play as your second running back if you want to spend up on a Derrick Henry, or you want to spend up on wide receiver or on tight end. You got Chuba Hubbard at 6,100. He's got 40 carries over the last 2 weeks, and Chuba is firmly entrenched as the lead caballo, while Christian McCaffrey is on the IR. So, again, you're not getting 100% Christian McCaffrey usage. He's not going to be getting 10 targets, but you know what? If I would take, 15 to 20 rushing attempts, and the Giants, they're allowing a total of 168 total yards, not rushing yards, total yards, so rushing and receiving, to the running back. So, he is an option. Maybe he gets a couple passes out of the backfield. Another one that I like is Joe Mixon. Last week he had 23 touches. It was his first game where he appeared healthy coming off of that ankle injury. So he turned that into 153 total yards, and he's going up against the Baltimore defense that's just number 24 against the running back position. Last week they looked really good because they got up early and the Chargers had to just abandon the running game. So that was kind of masking things a little bit. Yes, it's something to hold Austin Eckler under 10 yards, but again, Joe Mixon is not going to be held under 10 yards. This is going to be a more balanced attack, and they need him to do well against the Ravens. Over on wide receiver side, my caliente pick is Davante Adams at 8,900. Yes, I know that's a lot of money to pay, but you know what? It's easy to look over at Tyreek Hill or Cooper Kupp or one of the more wide receivers on the slate, and wait, you're spending up on Derrick Henry. Well, I've got to line up with Davante Adams because he's getting 37% of the target share, and he's averaging 11 targets per game thus far this season. And he's getting those targets from Aaron Rodgers, the owner of the Chicago Bears, as you might have heard. But you know what? The other thing is he also has just 2 TDs this season. And so I can expect him to jump past that because this is a guy who scored 10 plus TDs in 4 of the past 5 seasons. This guy's a TD monster. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for 150 and 2 touchdowns, maybe 10 receptions, because you know what? That Washington football team secondary, no bueno. Tyreek Hill, 8,600. Yes, he's expensive. And yes, he's got a quad injury. So that, he played through it last week. So maybe maybe he's getting better, or maybe he's just gutting it out and it's not that bad. But again, he has had smash spots against Cleveland, against Philly, and Washington. He's delivered every time. The Titans are dead last against the wide receiver position. So Hill, and again, they're going to give up some points too. So this is going to be a back and forth game, the 57.5 over under. So you got Hill primed for a big game. So just keep an eye on that quad issue. Make sure he's active again. You're going to get it's a 10 o'clock game. So you're going to know that early on. Cooper Kupp at home. No worries about weather. So I tweeted I tweeted earlier this week, kind of kidding around, that he's an RB1 at 8,400. He is worth RB1 territory. In fact, among the non-QBs, he trails only Derrick Henry when it comes to fantasy points on the season. He's gotten at least 10 targets in every game, and he's had at least 92 receiving yards in all but one game, 92 plus. You got Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Darnell Mooney have all had big games against the Lions over the last 3 weeks. Book Cooper Kupp for another big game and at least one trip to the end zone. DJ Moore, 7,100. Again, all these prices, otra vez familia, they are DraftKings prices, and so make sure you're keeping an eye on that. So the Giants are number 28 and giving up 211 receiving yards over the past 3 games, just to the wide receivers. And Moore is still getting all the attention from Darnold. He's been in double-digit targets for the past 5 games. He only had one rough game in week 5. So I'm telling you, he's going to go off. Just give that man some time, that man being Sam Darnold. Another one that I had to make sure wasn't a misprint was Calvin Ridley at 6,600, going against the Dolphins. Otra vez, this is going to be a game where he could go off potential. He missed for a personal issue last week and then had the bye week, so maybe people kind of forgot about him. But this is a bargain for a guy who's going to be caliente this week. He's going to be en fuego. He's still getting at least 31% of the target share in the last 2 games that he's played in. And the Dolphins, until they get healthy, they're just going to keep hemorrhaging points out of the secondary. They're number 31 against wide receivers since week 4. So I'm going to keep picking on them. Another guy that I love this week is A.J. Brown. In fact, I've got a lineup with A.J. Brown and Davante Adams in it that I'm going to share at the end. I mentioned dentro y afuera that Brown's return is official. He got 9 targets last week, 7 receptions, 91 yards. He is the number 1 guy. Keep an eye on Julio Jones. I think there's still a possibility that he's going to play. But again, A.J. Brown's the guy that you want to get into your lineup because this is a Chiefs team that has been beaten up by Devonta Smith, Mike Williams, Marquise Brown. So A.J. Brown, come on down. So I'm not going to tire of calling this game a shootout. Last couple of receivers to talk about, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Chris Godwin at 5,900, Mike Evans 6,500. This is because Antonio Brown has already been ruled out for this game. So he's a guy who's getting almost 11 targets, who's gotten 11 targets, almost 11 targets from weeks 4 to 6. So those targets have to go somewhere. Godwin and Evans, they're inexpensive compared to what they are. They're both averaging about 20% target share, so they're going to be getting plenty. But this is a high-flying offense, and Senor Tom Brady is going to be looking for these guys. He is just torching everybody. The only seemingly bad game that they had was in the rain up in New England. So Chicago, better than average defense, but they're not going to be able to put up a fight against Tampa. A couple of dart throws that make sure to check out the article that I'm posting on familiaffb.com where I talk about some of these other guys, but a couple of dart throws to talk about. Mecole Hardman at 4,300, Deshaun Jackson at 3,400. A couple of cheap plays if you want to play them with Kyler Murray, Christian Kirk, Rondale Moore. Christian Kirk is at 5,300, Rondale Moore at 4,400. So we've got a few tight ends to talk about. Kelce under 8K. I mean, I know he got a stinger last week, and I know the Titans are number 2 against the tight end, but the best tight end that they've gone against during that time has been Dawson Knox, and he's not in the same area code. He's not in the same paragraph. He's not in the same state as Travis Kelce. This guy is going to go down as potential GOAT, and he's getting about 9 targets a game, so I expect him to get at least that in this one. And again, this is going to be a shootout. I hate it when I say again so much. I'm sorry, familia. So I'm gonna try and stop saying that so much. Mark Andrews, 6,000. He is the stack possibility with Lamar Jackson. So TJ Hawkinson just last week went for caught 8 of 11 targets for 74 yards. Andrews is the target in the red zone for the Baltimore Ravens. So, make sure I expect, at least what TJ Hawkinson did that last week and potentially a touchdown there. So look at him for your lineup. Another one that I had to look at was Dallas Goddard, 4,600. It's a great bargain. The Raiders are number 31 against the tight end this season. They've been beaten up by Noah Fant, Jared Cook, and Mike Gesicki. Goddard is alone for tight end targets now after the Zach Ertz trade. So, and Ertz was getting a 15% target share. So Goddard is going to be a guy who's going to be looked at. Now, again, it's not going to be that pretty so much, but Goddard is a guy that he's a good option if you want to go a little cheaper at the position. Now, another one that we don't want to forget, Kyle Pitts. Now, we had so much hype for him. I hyped him up during the preseason at 5,900 this week. I want to know that London game was not an anomaly, that it was an actual breakout. But he got 10 targets. Yes, he got them without Calvin Ridley, but the previous week he got 9 with Ridley in the lineup. And Miami is number 24 against the tight end, and they're allowing 71.5 receiving yards a game to the tight end position. So I'm looking for Pitts to come up big in this game. Again, this is a game where it could run. It could run. The last player we're going to talk about, Mike Gesicki. Again, otra vez in this lineup. He's at 4,700 in this potential shootout game. This guy is running routes on 71% of the pass plays, and he's getting a 19% target share now. Devontae Parker is coming back from injury this week. So does that eat into his opportunities? Does that eat in a little into Jalen Waddle's opportunities? He's at about 22%. I'm still looking for Gesicki to be potentially a cheap play and someone that could be getting a touchdown in this game and maybe like 60 to 75 yards and get some receptions. So, and if you're looking for cheap stacks, Tua and Gesicki, that's for just a little bit over $10,000. So, otra vez, get there. Bueno, familia, eso es todo for our show. Otra vez, please make sure you're liking and subscribing us on YouTube. We're live streaming. Sometimes we live stream, sometimes we drop shows, but please make sure you're liking and subscribe so that we can keep putting out this podcast to help the Familia community. Also, make sure to like and subscribe to Apple, Google, Spotify, because we're out there because of Anchor. Un millón de gracias for that, for everybody who's liked and subscribed. Now, make sure you're following me at Jorge Martin 17 on Twitter. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Jorge Martin 17, at Familia FFB, and also our Familia FFB Facebook page. We are live over there. Orale Familia on Facebook. And lastly, make sure you're following us on following our original content at familiafbb.com. Otra vez, have a wonderful, wonderful domingo, and make sure you're having a good time and enjoying it. We're getting a little bit of fall weather over here in California, so ojalá you're all enjoying that too. And remember, everybody, todos somos familia. Salud.